Hey nerds, welcome to the Nerd Social. In this video, we will review and do a spoiler breakdown and discussion of Star Wars Andor, Episodes 4, titled Aldhani, Episode 5, titled The Axe Forgets, and Episode 6, titled The Eye. All three episodes are written by Dan Gilroy and directed by Susanna White. Starting now. All right, everyone, welcome to the Nerd Social. I'm John.
And I'm Priya.
So the spoiler-free summary of this episode in Episode 4, Aldhani, out of options, Cassian is recruited for a dangerous mission to infiltrate an Imperial garrison. In Episode 5, The Axe Forgets, Cassian must carefully navigate the distrust inherent in being the new member of a secret operation. In Episode 6, The Eye, with cover from a spectacular local festival, the Aldhani mission reaches a point of no return. So, Priya, spoiler-free review. What did you think of episodes 4, 5, and 6?
Thanks, John. So really, I think we've talked about this before amongst ourselves as well. It's a very different Star Wars vibe to this show, and I think it's great because we know Andor's story and how it ties into the grand arc because of Rogue One. But this show really is about his journey as a rebel. And while episodes 1, 2, 3 felt more like film noir, I think episodes 4, 5, and 6 shift that into more like a heist type of storyline, which I thought was really cool. I think the other thing that is so noticeable is just my God, the cinematography, the locations, and definitely at the end of this set, it just kind of blows it out of the water in terms of the visuals. So I think that's really been stunning. I think the other thing is the acting and the dialogue continue to be so stellar. I mean, it's definitely a gear switch, right? It's a longer term story. They're really kind of building into these characters and showing you their inner storylines, not just Andor's, but a lot of the other characters. So I really do kind of like the strongness of the plot. It's kind of bridging what's to come. I think the 3 episodes actually sit really well together and kind of allows that storyline to breathe in a really fun way, even if it's in a different way to what we're used to with Star Wars heists. But I really enjoyed it. I mean, honestly, the points I just mentioned, I thought were really amazing. That the acting was really at the core of it. But yeah, I'm kind of digging the different Star Wars vibes with the show.
I absolutely agree with you. I think the acting has been phenomenal, including the other characters, giving some time to some of the folks there as we build into the heist, leading up to the heist. So I think you might agree with me here that all the different heist movies or heist TV shows that are out there, just a build up, right? How it all comes together and how potentially people are preparing and making the planning and all that type of stuff. That's the fun of it as well. And of course, the tensions that build, that bring out the different character quirks, and just a little different nuances in each situation, character, background, story, leading up to all of it. That's been absolutely fun for me. Some folks have been seeing that out there. I've seen the chatter on the internet that the show's been a little slower than they would have liked, but I like it. I like the slow build-up. I like the just taking its time with it. And conveniently, I know we've been behind on this recording, that we've been able to stack up 3 episodes together. But honestly, it's worked out that way as well, where three chunks at a time. It's 3 episodes at a time. Going over a particular arc has been very beneficial. So we'll talk and get into the spoiler talk in a minute, where it definitely leads to a conclusion of this particular arc here. But yes, the acting's been phenomenal. The cinematography's been great as well, and I love the little attention given to each of the characters, including some of the villains on the show as well. And so we'll get into that. But for those of you who like our content and like what you're seeing and like what you're listening to, please like and subscribe, and that way we can bring to you more content that you like, and hopefully you can continue to enjoy what we do here as well. So without further ado, let's go right into the spoilers. All right, Priya. So let's start with you. Let's talk about episode 4. So episode 4, if you recall, that's right after Luthen brought Cassian Andor right to that planet, and basically sprung it on him that, look, you're going to just follow along and do everything I say, and you'll get paid for this. So he's essentially a paid mercenary to join this band. So that's how it starts off. What do you think of so far? What did you think of episode 4, the way it started out?
Yeah, I thought it was, I mean, Skarsgård gets to use like his entire acting muscles in this one episode just to see that transformation of himself between the two versions of Luthen. I thought that itself kind of blew my mind. But I really thought it was interesting because we're kind of seeing, you know, really the birth and the bedrock of the Rebel Alliance in Aldhani, but really through Andor's eyes, right? It's really kind of seen from his perspective, and it's shaping his character. I also think the whole idea of the blue kyber crystal was a nice little shout out to you know, the Star Wars books and video games, because that's kind of part of the canon around the Rakatan, the original Force users. So I thought that was like just a nice little touch, but you know, of an exchange between Luthen and Andor. I mean, you know, we were saying earlier, it's a different kind of Star Wars story. I mean, I think we've seen so many firsts in this show, you know, and I think this is probably one of the first times that they've even acknowledged the whole Rakatan, and like, you know, the fact that those blue kyber crystals are really kind of important in the lore. So I thought that was actually really interesting. We can talk a little bit more about the rebels specifically, because I think that's an awesome interaction between Clem and them too. But what about you? How did you kind of enjoy that whole exchange?
Again, it's the tension that's always there, and the way it started out. Even though Clem, or Andor in this case, reluctantly went with Luthen, and definitely the curiosity got the best of him here as well. That tension is always there. There's always tension with the new team, the new members, or the team that he's supposed to be a part of, also with Luthen there as well. The tension with Luthen going back to Coruscant, and I thought that was hilarious. Just phenomenal acting there. We just got to see some method acting or something, where he just puts that wig on and puts on a new face, and you know, he comes out. I thought that was hilarious, and I'm a huge fan of Skarsgård. I love everything that he's in. And I enjoy both English language, Swedish language, whatever language he's speaking in, and he's fascinating. But yeah, getting there and just trying to set up everything, setting the stage. I wasn't exactly sure what to expect meeting that new team, and so that was great to see. That, to me, that little mystery, the suspense of, okay, what's going on here? Who is this lady? And what he's about to meet this team, and it's still trying to figure it out. And of course, again, immediate tension, suspicion even on their parts, the new team that he's meeting. Like, who is this guy? Are you kidding me? You're bringing somebody in now? And so I don't know how many times they've said it. And it seems like every new character coming is like, really? Now? Really? Now?
It's the nth hour. But everyone's response is, well, we really need him. We can do with an extra hand.
Correct. So, and then, you know, poor Cassian. He's here like, I don't know what I'm here for. But I'll do it because I'm told I'm going to do it because I need the money, you know?
Exactly.
And but the Kyber Crystal, that was cool. I'll be honest, the first time I've seen that mention, for me it was Rogue One. Although it may have shown up in other media that I have come across, I don't really remember it being referred to that way. But here on this in Rogue One, referred to as Kyber crystals, and at the same time here as well. I didn't know they were worth that much, so I guess it's worth a lot, and that's definitely a new thing there. If that's the case, how come people aren't stealing lightsabers left and right?
Right?
Because you're going to find one in each one, right?
Exactly.
So that was cool to see. But the what did you think of each of the new members or were being introduced here, especially the little gang of heist people there?
Yeah, I loved the whole kind of unwrapping that whole gang of rebels because, you know, it is a very slow process, right? And I think that's very much deliberate, where, you know, they're really showing us the details and the preparation that it goes in order for them to pull this off. You know, it's not about being the hero straight away and just rushing in. It's really much more about the preparation and the details that they are going through and they have been going through, and they really do kind of go through this painstaking thing of showing you all of that, and all the training that Andor has to do, right? Even like the way that they march and which side they have to stand on. And I thought that was cool, you know, like you were saying. I just think that's an interesting kind of way to really show that build up to the heist. You know, if this was a typical kind of Star Wars show, I think they would have done like one episode and then the next episode the heist. But here they really did take the time to draw it out and kind of really establish those characters. You know, I think they also, you know, it feels like it's a more grown up type of story, even in terms of the conversations that they're having. You know, like that exchange that Andor has with, I think his name was Skeen, about like they both were in prison when they were younger, and then Skeen gives that whole background about why he's in the rebel, you know, why he's part of this rebel group of people, because, you know, his brother essentially was committed suicide in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so I think it's definitely a more grown up feeling about the show, and more real and more grounded, because you also get, you know, Nemec, who's like the total philosopher.
Yes.
So, you know,
His
and
manifesto.
he has, yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think it's kind of, it's not just like a ragtag group of heroes. It really is kind of this group of people that have been brought together. And like you said, there's tension and they're all suspicious of each other, but they know they have to deliver on this mission. So I thought that was a well kind of played out group dynamic.
What about Mothma?
Yeah.
We are introduced to Mothma when Luthen has looked like some kind of antique store, right?
Yeah. Like art dealer or antiques dealer or
Art
something
dealer,
like that.
antique store, or rare items, rare relic type things. And what stuck out to me was that suit of armor. I don't know if you saw in the background of him. It looked like a samurai suit with all these spikes coming out of the head.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was looking it up online. I'm like, that's got to be something, right? And I hear it's from some other Star Wars game. It's a reference to another Star Wars game. I can't remember exactly which one, but it definitely stuck out to me because it looked like kind of like Darth Vader, yet samurai looking. And but anyways, so she's introduced there as well. And is that the same lady from
Rogue One?
It is. Okay. All right. So what did you think of her introduction and her showing up on the show?
I loved her showing up, because honestly, like the later version of her when Laura Dern, like that's just such a like scene stealer, you know, with her. So I do like that they're taking the time to actually build out Mon Mothma's narrative. So I was really happy when she showed up, and I think this episode really shows the dichotomy between her public and private life.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and that I think it's meant to cause you discomfort in a way. 'Cause some of those scenes, I'm like, oh my god, especially the teenager. I was like, oh my god, poor Mon Mothma.
Yeah, so I guess she's apparently, she is a politician, a rich one at that, and we definitely see that she already has some sort of connection with Luthen. They're in things together, right? So, and then we very quickly see in episode 5 as well, like as you mentioned, as she sits into dinner. Boy, more tension, right? More tension with her husband. The daughter shows up. She's sassy as anything. I'm still not sure exactly what she's so pissed about, but apparently things are not all that great, right? So, and here she is, not only trying to do, looks like, what was it? There's some charity thing, along with she's got to go to her Senate hearing or something, and at the same time planning a rebellion, right?
Yeah, and dropping her daughter off to school.
Dropping her daughter off to school.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, and I think it kind of I wrote this down with episode 5. I know we're still talking about 4, but I wrote down with episode 5, you know, all the storylines kind of merge on the question of like, what are you fighting for?
Yeah.
You know, and Mon Mothma is obviously fighting on a lot of fronts, but at the core of it, she's obviously willing to put everything on the line for this rebellion, you know, that she's trying to essentially put together with Luthen. So I think it's a really interesting way to kind of show again the roots of how that all kind of comes together by the time you see everything in Rogue One.
Yep, yep. And then episode 5 looks
Although
like.
wait,
Oh,
one more point
oh,
on
sure,
episode
sure, go
four.
ahead.
No, which I thought was hilarious was all the office politics at the Imperial Security Bureau because it was all about like Miro and breaking the glass ceiling,
Oh,
and I
that's
was just
right.
like, oh my God, this just reminds me of my job. It was kind of funny because it was like everyone was trying to get be the shining star and get like the senior manager's
Yeah,
attention,
yeah.
which I thought was actually just hilarious. And at some point that she's gonna link up with Syril, because he got kicked out. Their storylines are probably gonna merge. But that was the other thing that stood out for me in episode 4 was just all the office politics made me kind of laugh because it was in a Star Wars
I
setting, which is
know.
so
So it's like instead of the office, it's the Imperial office, and they
yeah.
have. Yeah, I did find that fascinating as well. She's trying to make her mark, and you got these really stiff other officers that are constantly either getting in her way or trying to put her in her place, quote unquote, or
Mhm.
whatever. And but at the same time, it's very clear she's onto something. She's actually picking up
Yeah.
on stuff, and so yeah, it's interesting seeing that as well. Who's the guy that is constantly leading? I guess he's the big boss of the place. The way he
Yeah.
runs everything with no nonsense, just very curt, short, and everything.
Exactly.
That guy
Exactly.
cracked me up. But all right, so that's definitely a good one there. So in episode 5, we go back to seeing Syril, and this time with his mom. So I don't. I was going to call him Mama's Boy, but at the same time, I mean, what a weird. It was so.
Oh.
I was cringing the whole time. I felt bad for him. I know that's what they're trying to do here as well, because he's now ruined. He's back at his
Mhm.
mom's place, and what does she tell him? She tells him all kinds of stuff that just makes me cringe.
Oh my gosh. It's talk about another kind of like cringe and uncomfortable exchange between like parent and child. But yeah, that exchange was just, I mean, again, brilliant acting because
Yes.
like both of them in that scene. And you're right. I think the whole point is you're supposed to feel for
Yep.
Cyril and
Yep.
kind of understand his motivations, right? And obviously, like he, again, I'm saying like, what are you worth fighting? What are you willing to fight for?
Hmm.
And he wants to keep fighting and looking for Andor,
Yep.
right? And I think him getting berated by his mom and being told he's not good enough is just pushing him further in there. They also dropped this whole Uncle Harlow thing, and I'm wondering if that, like, are we supposed to know who that is? Do you know who that is,
I
or
have
is
no
that gonna
clue,
like,
but I'm like,
okay,
I, I guess every family has an Uncle Harlow that's supposed to hook you up or whatever. Or, hey, let's call Uncle Harlow. He knows what's best for you. Oh, by the way, he thinks your career should be this and that. It's like, oh my gosh, I saw, yes, I saw my mom a little bit there. I saw others' moms that I've seen, and then I've seen all the moms that we've seen on TV and movies that just kind of grates at you here and there. So
yeah.
yeah, that was hilarious. I was definitely cracking up and cringing at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I think, that's what we were saying. Like it's definitely a gear switch, and it's more kind of like real and grounded because this isn't stuff that you would have seen in any of the original episodes. This kind
Yeah.
of, one-to-one exchange that's actually kind of cringy.
Hmm.
And I think again, I like the fact that it feels fresh because it's different.
Yeah.
And I guess from what you were saying that you're reading online, the question is how long can it keep
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
freshness, and still keep that appeal. I personally think it's great, but I think there's also an expectation of it because it's in the Star Wars
Yeah.
saga of it unfolding in a certain way. But yeah, I think it's great, and I like Cyril's kind of the deeper look into Cyril and his personal trauma, I guess, in this episode with his mom.
I know, to go from aha, you messed up, you bungled your whole operation in the third episode, to go to this, it's a little jarring, and at the same time, yeah, I did feel a little bad for him, but at the same time, let's see what else he's going to bungle next. as,
Yeah,
as he
exactly.
tries to redeem himself later, right, in the eyes of the Empire. So back with our gang, our rebel gang here as they're preparing. So this is that conversation you were speaking of before, where Andor as Clem is talking to Skeen, and Skeen apparently, I guess he finds his Skeen had taken his weapons while Andor was sleeping, and just because he doesn't trust him, and that's when they kind of talk a little bit about, like, Arya, where did you say you were from again? And sounds like they had somewhat similar background. And Andor, I guess that's where he's flashing his street cred there, talking about where he is from. And I believe that's also where he says, the axe forgets, which is where the title's coming for, but the tree remembers. So what did you think of that exchange there?
I thought it's really interesting because, like, like you were saying, everyone has that tension, and each individual relationship that Andor has with almost every rebel has that layer of tension. I think it's probably the most between him and Skeen, but I think that exchange of, like, seeing the tattoos and acknowledging that they both have a similar kind of past, helps a little bit with moving their relationship forward, even though that suspicion is obviously still there. I also kind of like that the exchange that he has with Nemik,
Yes.
And I think Nemik has some just great lines in that exchange, very kind of like philosophical, but echoes into kind of some real life, politics and real life issues that we see in our world,
Yep.
that I think really resonated. And you can see that that's planting the seeds probably in Andor's head, right? And I think that's kind of the point of some of this.
Correct. I think that manifesto that he's writing, basically laying the groundwork for what the rebels are really, truly should be fighting for. And it does look like that's what Andor should be picking up on eventually, in one way or another. And we'll see that in the next episode as well. But yeah, definitely, it didn't seem like he cared, but he's actually listening. He's actually listening to the guy. The guy, it sounds like he's making sense. It's almost like Andor has never really considered any of this stuff before, but now, definitely planting the seeds there with Andor as Clem, right?
Yeah. And I think he has respect for Nemik, right? He's never like rude or curt with it. I think you're right. Like, he is listening. And I think, Diego Luna definitely conveys so much without dialogue, which again really is kudos to a lot of the acting in this. But yeah, I like that. What about, like, with him and Val and the other guy whose name I can't remember, that was the ex-stormtrooper, which I think they told.
I think it's Tamarin.
Tamarin, yeah.
Right? So when they went into the tent, they wanted to quiz him or pop quiz him right there and say, like, how would you do this? How would you account for the weight? Right? And I love that whole exchange because you saw how animated Andor got, because he said, why are you asking me this? Like, wait a minute, you didn't even account for this. You never even planned for this. How are you going to even do this, right? And that begins to have him start to question, like, oh my gosh, we're all going to die here. I mean, what am I doing here? And but they kept saying, I asked you a question, how would you input the weight? How would you input the weight? And Andor, being the experienced pilot that he is, immediately, well, there's a lever, then you do this, you do. He explains everything. I forget exactly how. Some clutch, right? It's something about the clutch.
Yeah.
And that legitimizes his knowledge of what he's about to do. And they're like, okay, all right, well, we'll fly there. He's like, no, I'm flying it. I want to live. I'm flying that thing. I thought it was great acting. I love the way he got so serious at the moment. And again, more tension there. That's what was so entertaining to me, is like you see like little exchanges like that. Again, raising the tension, raising the stakes, that this potentially could go wrong. And these guys, even though they were planning this for a while, they certainly didn't account for everything, and so that leaves a little bit of doubt, like, oh crap, okay, I got to watch out for that. That might happen in the heist, right? So
I think it raises the stakes for him personally, right? Because now he's like, oh man, now I'm gonna have to, like, really be involved in this and pull my weight. Not that he thought that before, but certainly all these, especially that exchange, and he was like, wait, how are we going to do this if I wasn't here?
Exactly.
Realization moment, I think, was definitely the the like, oh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
we may actually fail.
Yeah. I know. So then they shift to what you were spoke about before. They're now practicing, I guess, as troops or sentries, or they're trying to learn to
Hmm.
march together, hold the guns together, and you were talking about how Andor pointed out that some of the guns, the way they're holding it, one guy's left hand, another guy's right hand, maybe they should switch spots. Because the ex-stormtrooper Tamarin is the one who's leading this practice or this dry run that they're doing. And it's obvious that he's not accounting for certain details. He may get the big picture, but
Yeah.
Andor is definitely picking up on the small things and the little things that matter. So to me, again, that gives a little legitimacy of, oh yeah, he obviously he wants to make this work. At the same time, he is paying attention to this stuff. Even though everyone keeps constantly questioning,
Yeah.
are you in it? Are you doing this right? Are you paying attention? Or do you really want to do this? And again, it just added more to the legitimacy of yeah, he's here. You can rely on him. He's got it. He got this. So so. And then I think there was like a bunch of TIE fighters flying by and all that
Yeah.
stuff. The
That's
patrols.
it kind of dipped down like near the
Yep.
ground. And I think Nemec says something about like there's an attack underground is much more than up above or something like that. I don't
Yep.
remember the line exactly. Was it at the end of this episode as well where they have that exchange, or is it the next one where they have that exchange on the hill where he pretty much admits like I'm getting paid for this and I might as well tell you
So
now.
it's at here. It's
It's
here in
at, it's
this
at the end of
episode that happens where yeah, you're right. He points out because who is it? Skeen comes and grabs, steals the kyber crystal, and says, "See, look at this. Look at this. Why does he even have this?" And that's when Clem says, Andor says, "Yeah, all right, guys, I admit it. I'm getting paid for this." So like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
he's a merc, and but it just still he pretty much says he's still in. The leader, what is her name? The leader,
Val.
Val, right? Says, look, he's here. He's paid, but he's still with us. He's going to do this.
And I like how he flips it on them. He's like, I don't want to be the reason that you are going. I don't want to be the reason that you're like transmitting your fear. You might as well know
Correct.
that I am here, I am getting paid, and I'm going to do this
Yep.
job because I'm getting paid. Don't point your fingers at me because you guys are just scared to do
Yep.
this, and you should be scared to do this because I'm scared too, kind of thing. I like
Yep.
that he just kind of like turned it around on them completely.
Yeah, he sure is a master at that.
Mhm.
I'll have to take a note on how he does that. But yes, you're right. He says, yeah, don't basically use me for this just because you're scared. So, yeah, yeah. Are there any other things that you want to bring up as a part of this episode that you'd like to discuss?
Not at this one, but I think it's funny because I think people were expecting the heist to happen in this episode and we didn't get it. And I actually thought that was kind of fun.
It is. At the end of the episode, I was like, no, I got to wait another week for this, right?
Yeah, and I think that's cool that they did that. I mean, it's cool for some people, not cool for all, obviously. But I think they're building all of those details and they're making us really see what it goes into to even do this heist, right?
Yep.
And so I think you're meant to see all of those little details of them sleeping and them cleaning their weapons and them doing the march and da 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 da. You're supposed to see all of
Yeah.
that. So I thought that was fun. So then episode 6, finally we get the eye,
Yep.
right? Or not? Is it the eye?
It's the
Yeah,
eye.
the eye.
Yes.
The eye of the storm. So that's what it ends with.
Yep. So
This story.
the eye, which references this I guess phenomenon that at the same time they hold some sort of festival, the people on the planet there or the people in that region. So it looks like some kind of meteor shower, right? Some meteor shower
Yeah.
that streaks across the sky, and that their plan is to escape during that meteor shower because that ship that cargo ship that they're going to fly out isn't fast enough. So it's certainly not fast enough to outrun any TIE fighter. So they wanted to do it in confusion. But so episode 6, the Eye, they're going to. This is where the heist happens. So again, building up. So they're getting ready to get out there. We're also seeing. I don't think we got to talk about Gorn. Gorn is the
Oh yeah.
Imperial officer that is basically working with them. he's working everything on the inside there, just trying to make sure that festivities are going as planned, because the Imperials have some sort of sham of a ceremony, I think, that's happening to just kind of keep the locals at ease. And I found it interesting that I guess some of the officers, they're talking to each other, and they're bringing up how basically they keep the locals at bay, how they control them, how they, basically everything is a lie to them, and this is how we keep the locals in line. I thought that was a little fascinating, considering this is how everyone speaks of how governments today are doing things. How do you keep the masses in line? How do you feed them just enough so that they think they have control over things, or they actually have participation in something, or the goodwill that's shared with each other? What did you think of some of those conversations taking place?
Yeah, I thought that was, like you said, I think it translates so much into some of the situations that we're seeing currently, and I think that's something to be said about how Star Wars, even though in this fictional universe, is really able to transcend some of these themes. And I think it really kind of, again, it's some of the dialogue is really cringy because they're like patting themselves on the
Yeah.
back for, essentially, you know, ha conducting all of these like kind of mass murders in a way, and genocide, and cutting down the Dani people who, you see them as kind of really kind of like a proud society
Hmm.
when you do see them. Obviously they have different beliefs um, from the Empire, and you can see that even though they don't speak the same language, and we don't really know fully what the Dani are saying. So I kind of think that's part of the point, that you're, like you said, you're supposed to see some of these parallels.
Yeah.
Um, I think the other thing with Lieutenant Gorn, it's a really interesting characterization of him, because you do get his backstory as well, right? With like he fell in love with this Dani woman,
Hmm.
and then essentially she was killed, and that's really what turned him. And his whole exchange with his commanding officer, when his commanding officer finally realized that he was on it, was brilliant too. So I thought, Gordon kind of gets a nice arc in this episode.
Yes.
Uh, you know, Unfortunately, him and Tamarin are kind of the first to go, which I thought was, you're actually picking off the,
Oh yeah, the trope.
you're picking off the people who actually were with the Empire. I don't know if it's like karma in the Star Wars universe, even though they were fighting for the other side now.
Yeah.
Whether or not, I guess he's dead is, I don't know. With Gorn, I think Tamarin for sure, but
Yeah,
Gorn, I
I
don't.
thought they died. If they do come
Yeah.
back, I'll be surprised. But I was also sad to see them go. But we knew there would be some casualties. But I
Hmm.
was obviously we people watching this, like myself, just pulling for them to come through on that. But it doesn't look like they made it. And the guy who shot Gorn, I don't know if you watch Agents of Shield, but that was Nick Blood, who plays Lance on that show.
Okay.
So as soon as I saw him in the previous episode, hey, I recognize that face. He has darker hair now, but definitely that guy, Kamzi, something like that. He
Okay.
that's the officer who was listening in, and when they shut off all the communications, and he was able to hear all the exchanges back and forth
Yeah.
there as well. But
Yep.
but yeah, so the Donnie people, they've got this pilgrimage, and that's what they're using to. So that's how they get in, right? So they're in there impersonating officers that are escorting the pilgrims to this ceremony with the Imperials, and that's how they get onto the base. Meanwhile, you got Vel going in. What was it? Wearing a frog skin suit, diving
Hmm.
suit, and they're trying to get in from the other side of the base as well. And I guess they're just going to meet at the location. Once they're
Yeah.
inside, they do get inside, and finally they whip out their guns and onto the and take their hostage. So their whole heist is to steal the I guess the payroll for the
Yep.
Imperials. And I could make out what were those things? Were they supposed to look like gold bars or something?
I It looked like almost like a printing press
Hmm.
thing, those rolls. That's the one thing I do love, how even though it's a tech forward in a lot of ways, Star Wars, like their technology still looks like it's in the 70s.
Yes.
Like even some of like the gadgets that, you know, Andor and the Rebel group was looking for, I'm like,
Mhm.
that looks like Tetris, you know, like old school, like this like really bulky kind of technology. So I kind of love that they do
Yeah.
that. It's so like the fact that the payroll is not digitized is just baffling to me. So they have these like giant rolls of I don't know. I was also like, is it gold? Is it like
Yeah.
this just physical kind of payrolls? It was definitely strange, and there was a lot
A
of it.
lot of it, right? So a lot of it, it kind of reminded me of the Italian Job when they're trying to steal all this
Mhm.
gold bars, and they got to load up 3 cars. Well, here they got to load up one giant cargo ship,
Yeah.
and like you said, there's a lot. So if they're going to steal a significant amount, they're forcing the hostages that they've taken to go help them load it up as quickly as possible within minutes, and then they're supposed to
Yeah.
make their way out of there. So inevitably things go awry, shootout ensues, and that's where we talked about Gorn and Tamarin biting the dust, and Andor looked like he was about to get choked out,
Hmm.
and Nemec saves him with a shot as well. So quickly, Andor takes a ship and is about to take off, and during the takeoff, those really heavy ass bars or whatever it is slides into Nemec. It looks like a serious back injury, right? And so
Hmm.
they decide. So on the ship, you have Vel, you have Skeen, and you also have Nemec as well. Now the meteor showers are happening. They're trying to escape. TIE fighters are launching to come after them. And by the way, there's all the sequences. There's thrilling, absolutely thrilling. I'm there like,
I
what's going to
know.
happen?
And just beautiful. Like that whole like celestial eye
Yep,
event. Oh my God. I mean, that those visuals, hats off. Like that's a screensaver right there.
yep,
When you see like the ship and the TIE fighters behind going with
yep.
the oh my gosh, it's
It
beautiful.
is. It is. They did a really good job. They're very nice visual effects. They definitely spent some money there, and so it
Hmm.
looked great. And so Andor, I mean, I don't know about the weird planning here. They don't give him the coordinates as to where to
Yeah.
go. I mean, they're in the middle of this thing, and he's like, "Where am I going? Where am I taking the ship?"
And not just that, I was also saying, I'm like, okay, Nemec's the only one who knows. What if he didn't survive up to that point?
Which,
What was
I mean, he
the
got
plan?
squished in that thing too, so he damn near died as well. So, he's basically looks like he's on death's door. He grabs his little tricorder looking thing and says, "All right, we're gonna go here," and Andor punches it in. I wasn't sure exactly what they're doing there. Okay, so I guess the coordinates are there's a certain pattern you have to fly in order
Yeah.
to, I guess, lose those guys. It's the event, the eye event, is also making their scanners go haywire, or their radar or whatever that they're using. So, anyways, they finally make their escape. Skeen basically says, "Okay, where are we going? I mean, he needs medical attention. Nemec. Maybe we should take him to a doctor." And meanwhile, Val's like, "No, we got to get to the destination we're supposed to go, the rendezvous point." And Andor seeing Nemec, and he's definitely feeling for him. He's, "All right, where's the doctor? Where are we landing on this thing?" So they get to the doctor on this other planet, and while this what's the guy's name? Quad something.
Oh, the
Yeah, the
doctor?
four-armed doctor.
Yeah,
the
I'm
four
not sure.
Yep, the four-armed doctor is performing surgery on poor Nemec on his back. Meanwhile, Skeen is talking to
Hmm.
Andor outside, and Skeen basically says that whole story that we talked about, that you had mentioned, about his brother dying. That's his motivation for why he's doing this. It was all a fake. It was a story, a fake story. Like, so, what did you think of that? What did you think of that reveal?
Yeah, I thought that was it was kind of a gut punch, right?
Hmm.
Because literally everyone else dies,
Yes.
pretty much. Um, sorry, spoiler, not spoiler, but Nemec also passes away.
Yes.
But essentially, so it's just Val, Skeen, and Andor. They're the only three left
Hmm.
from their original group. And Skeen pretty much is like the unheroic hero, which says, I was only in it for the money.
Yep.
Um, and I think but that wasn't as unexpected to me as Andor killing him.
He shot
That to me, I
first.
was like, what?
Yeah, I think the guy didn't even get to finish his sentence, and boom, the blast just comes
Yeah,
out, right?
yeah. Yeah, it was a very like Han Solo type
Hmm.
moment, and I
Very
was like,
much.
okay, I guess that was unexpected more from Andor, and maybe that's the point that he's still not kind of, that full-shaped good guy rebel
Yeah.
that we know him from Rogue One. But I think that exchange was obviously revealing from Skeen's standpoint,
Hmm.
but I think the shock factor for me came when he got shot
Hmm.
by Cassian.
Yeah, I saw that as a moment where Andor actually he kind of did that before, even like didn't he just doesn't hesitate. I don't think they've ever shown him to really truly hesitate, because even in the first episode when he
The first episode.
shot those guys to defend himself, he didn't think twice, and same with this guy. Well, this guy here, not really a threat to him, but at the same time he clearly didn't like what he had to say, and
Yeah.
decided, you know what, you're not worth it. Boom, he's gone. And then when he goes inside, Vel's like, "Where's Skeen? Where's Skeen?" Because clearly it looks like he offed him just to get his own cut. Because Skeen wanted to, what is it? Steal the ship together with Andor and just run off with the money, right?
Yep.
And Andor's like, "Yeah, I took care of him. He was not who you thought he was. I just want
Mhm.
my piece. I just want my cut. And you look here, take the damn kyber crystal, and let me just take my share and go. But you take the ship. You can do your thing." And that's where we saw that Nemec did not make it there.
Yeah.
And she said, "Here, take this. Nemec wanted you to have this," and that was his manifesto. And he did hesitate there. He finally did grab it, and then we saw Lutheran hearing about the whole rebel
Mhm.
activity. And again, we see him just go to the back room and just joyously revel in it and just enjoying that, it's working.
Yeah. I like how I like how it ended in a way where, the manifesto is, it's a very deliberate plot choice, right?
Hmm.
For Andor. They're obviously like you're saying, that manifesto will, a lot of the ideals are probably like the birth of the Rebel Alliance. So I think it's a very specific plot choice, and you kind of wonder if this will be the catalyst for Andor as well in this next series, in this next chapter
Hmm.
within the
Yeah.
show. It definitely, I will say, this episode picked up the pace a lot, because we were saying, 4 and 5 were really like character building and unraveling and diving into details. I think this one definitely picked it up, but it also showed that nobody's safe, in a
Yeah.
way, because like nobody except him and Val at the end, right? They're the only ones who kind of made it out. But I think it was a nice kind of closing of the second act.
Yep.
And it's obviously further developing Andor. It's further pushing him towards the rebel cause. And so I liked that whole thing. And then yeah, I love how Luther just kind of, it's like relief and joy just comes
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, he's absolutely enjoying that. Yeah, and this just brings me to, I don't know about you, but for me, Rogue One is my favorite Star Wars movie. For a while there, it used to be Empire Strikes Back, but Rogue One's
Mhm.
really, over the years, has really moved up for me.
Oh
And,
wow.
and part
Mine's still
is
Empire,
still
so
Empire. Yeah, so it moved up for me because of the fact that you've got a tragic story there of nobody
yeah.
survives, right? Everyone
Yeah.
sacrifices. And I think to me, in any type of wartime movie, and call it space fantasy all you want, it's still a wartime type of movie where
Mm.
the Empire and the rebels are at it, and to see those type of sacrifices and the way it's portrayed. Same
Yeah.
here. These guys leading up to the birth of the cause at the same time, and seeing the sacrifices, seeing what it took to do all of that. I really enjoy seeing how it's depicted in this type of
Mm.
story, and so that's why for me so far, this is my favorite Star Wars series.
Mm.
Hmm.
Mm. I mean, yeah, if Rogue One is your favorite movie for those reasons, I can see that Andor will translate from the show.
Yep.
So
Well, Priya, any final thoughts on episodes 4, 5, and 6?
no, I think we covered it. I'm excited to see what the next trilogy of chapters look like.
All right. Well, nerds, that's it for us on our review, our spoiler-free review and spoiler review of Andor 4, 5, and 6. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.